So today I wanted to talk about. Now people ask me a lot about the technology that I've seen the Greys use, and what do alien beings use? Like, what's their technological threshold? And like one thing, I could explain on Twitter, and I have, but I can put more details in a video than in like 6 paragraphs of Twitter. So one thing that I did want to point out is that, from what I've seen, the Greys haven't been able to fix birth defects in hybrids. They've only been able to prevent them. But one interesting thing is that the planet that I used to live on, the planet that I come from, we had developed technology to the point where we could reverse birth defects. So we couldn't just prevent them, we could fix them once they showed up. And the reason that I kind of want to point this out is because, like, I know that it can be easy to assume that every advanced race in the universe is equally advanced in the same areas, but that's generally not the case at all. Like, people act like humanity is kind of like a failure of an advanced race, or not going to be advanced at all because you've developed weapons so much and everything else so little in comparison. But that's not true. Like, different races develop different things at different rates. Like, for the Greys, I would say they've probably developed, like, psychic interfacing tools much better, as well as maybe, like, information sorting systems better, because they're really efficient with that. But on the planet where I come from, we had super advanced medicine. Well, obviously we developed towards that. But, the flip side was that we had different kinds of underdeveloped things. Like, if you went over there, one thing that we had developed, which I think I've mentioned before, is that, like, we have this underdeveloped concept of leisure activities. Like, we definitely enjoy art and appreciate art, but we don't really understand, like, all of what completely constitutes, like, a pleasurable experience for relaxing. And, like, just because humanity is, like, a set way, it doesn't mean that, like, that's just a failure thing. Like, different races develop different aptitudes at different levels. Like, it's not like most races develop in a certain pattern. Like, that's never the case. That's why when people act like humanity is unique, like, humanity definitely has some points that make it unique, but at the same time, every race tends to develop in a slightly different way. Obviously, some races are strangely similar, across different space distances or systems or whatnot, but you see, like, the same kind of like, there's similarities and differences. Sorry, got a little sidetracked there mentally. So yeah, like, there's just different developmental rates. Like, for humanity, a priority over here was, like, we need to protect ourselves because, we attack each other pretty constantly. If they want my resources, they're going to come using force, So obviously there's a pressure to develop more, like, weapons or technological deterrence against weapons, like, I don't know, an explosive that can destroy the environment. But you'll just see, like, different rates of development. Like, if you say that each different line here is, like, a different scientific discipline, you see that there's just different rates. Obviously, this one over here is, like, insane, but it's probably older, too. Like, this one here is probably younger, but it has its own, like, expression and development rates. And a part of that is the planet that you come from. Because different planets will just put different pressures on species. Like, I'm pretty sure that despite having, like, a good idea of sanitation on the planet that I came from, we developed bacterial medicine a lot. I think it was because our environment there created such a huge variety of bacteria and whatnot. I don't remember the exact history of it, but because of our environment, there were some pressures there that encouraged us greatly, well, incentivized, I guess you could say, development of medical technology. And so, as a result, we developed medical technology at a faster rate than other sciences. And there's one thing I want to mention about that, too. Now, one thing I remember from the planet I used to live on is that we had figured out about bodies, and this is very interesting, is that you've got your physical body, just a chilling and whatever, and then you have this energetic body. It's usually sitting, like, right inside of it, like a completely perfect overlay. And you got these two, energy body, physical body right there, right? Well, what we had figured out is that basically, let me just gonna do a graph. It's gonna suck. What we figured out was that your physical body was like a point on a graph, and your energetic body was like the coordinate on that graph, the coordinate of the point on the graph. So what we realized is that if we changed the coordinate so that it was like maybe like ZY instead of XY, if we changed your coordinate tag, that is to say, if we altered your energetic body, your physical body would try to catch up to it. So your physical body would like slowly lean more towards that coordinate we put your energetic body at. And because of that, we realized it was possible to reverse things like birth defects or cellular disorders or, like growths or whatever, because we found out that your cells basically adhere to the coordinates that your energetic body has. So by changing your energetic coordinates, your physical cells adhere to it and slowly grow to match it. So yeah, I don't know exactly how you would achieve that with human technology. I'm sure that it's possible, but it's obviously going to be a very complicated process to figure out where exactly that meets with the human science we have on this planet. But yeah, and I'm sure the Greys are aware of this theory because, information from planets tends to get around. The thing about planets, the reason that developments aren't the same across the board, despite civilizations being in contact with each other, is that someone from like Japan can explain to you why they take off their shoes when they enter a room and how that keeps the sanitation of the floor really high. But that doesn't mean you're going to understand that and do that. So there's many races that have like, let's say like great medicine or great transportation technology, and they'll tell other races about it or even offer to share that research. But because the race doesn't have the incentives or, is like focused on something else or really just can't understand the concept, they won't be able to take it in and integrate it themselves. Like as a civilization gets more advanced, they tend to take in technologies from other races and integrate it into their own. But when you're beginning out there and you've still got a really strong sense of identity, you only want to do what you want to do. And many younger races in space are like that, so they still have their unique developmental pictures. And as any race gets older, it tends to even out with advancement in every single field because that's how knowledge works. So yeah, and yeah, so there's actually a lot of variety in the technological advancements of different species. Like in some ways, humanity is more advanced than other species that have space travel already. And that's just because we're using electricity as our power source right now, which means we have computers and phones and all that kind of stuff, And, and races that have space travel have obviously reached, like better energy sources. But that doesn't mean that they have like power grids. That doesn't mean that they have like an internet. Like development of a society has a huge variation, even for a race that has space travel or has telepathy or has psychic powers. Like, there's a lot of difference. That's why, some people would say that humanity is very young, yes, but humanity isn't the only kid on the block, okay? Like, you're just the only kid that's, like, not flying around, I guess. So, yeah, other than that, I'll probably add more to this rant, but I just wanted to point that out. Like, the Greys, what they're using right now, from what I've seen, the beings that I know specifically, they have a technology where they flood a room with a specific frequency that, instead of changing the coordinate of your astral body, just changes your physical body over time. So instead of like moving the point to Y, you're just sort of like distorting the graph so the point is technically on Y, and you leave it there for long enough where the point stays at Y. That's how I would put it. So there's definitely different kinds of technology. Like, one thing that I remember with great fondness is that these Greys, they have these technologies for like toys or games that they've let like us hybrids play with that are like so much fun. Like, sorry, I know I'm gushing about it, but there's this one game they had us play where it was like a projection, like a 3D projection, right? and they're like little dots in space that are glowing. And they would tell us, your job is to figure out the puzzle. And the puzzle is that these dots in space are actually specific constellations, and you're trying to find the exact angle by moving this 3D projection, to find like the Big Dipper or the Little Dipper or like the Leo constellation, and you're moving it just with your mind. So you imagine like the points moving a specific way, and it does, but they stay in relation to each other. And I remember, like, I loved that game so much because I could move it at any angle and it would respond instantaneously. Like, there wasn't any lag between me imagining move and then flip and then turn 90 degrees, and then it would do that. So that was a lot of fun. And that's one technology I really hope humanity gets, because that's a great technology. Like, video games, oh my god, I would love that in a video game. Like, yes, please. So there's many different kinds of technologies, and, different races have different applications for it. So, yeah. So while definitely in the future you'll probably see races come together in a unified front, you should know that they do come from their own diverse backgrounds of technology development and advancement. So, yeah. And that's it. Have a nice time, everyone. See you later.